Hello, YouTube family. Thanks again for joining me today as I continue our discussion on the important topic of who's raising America's children. I invite you to stay with me as I continue to lay the groundwork in the conversation until we reach a point where we can begin to have interaction and informed dialogue. There are some things that I'm here to inform you all just based on my perspective and with a lot of research that I've done on the subject and with many, many years of experience in working in the area of parental involvement. Dr. King in 1954 made this statement: America had allowed its scientific achievements and its material advancements to outdistance its spirituality and its morality. We find ourselves in a society today that makes the following comment: children lacking what is expected to be within human beings. Just think about that for a minute and allow it to soak in. Why did parents in America stop parenting their children? Before we can get to the answer, we must know how we got to the place where we are now, estrangement from our children and from each other. Nothing just happens. We have reached a place in America of no return. We cannot continue going down the same path. Did we not heed the warning that was given from one of our chief historical figures? Are we now reaping the consequences of following such a deadly trend that we did not make the adjustments, but now we can make the adjustment? Now that our eyes are open, now that we are awake to see our error and the mistakes that we made in going forward, that now we can do something about it. Now we must move forward together to correct some things. Together we must answer the question why. It's not just for one generation, it's for all of us now. We must all get on the same page and we must have the same sheet of music, singing the same song, which I think makes a wonderful symphony. How did we arrive at a place where 5 decades have passed us by, with children not being parented by their biological parents? How did we let 5 decades go by? Together, we must give the decades the answers that they need in order to help them to move forward. Together, we must give an account of our not being there and being missing in action. Together, we must unblock the passageway that allows wisdom to freely flow generationally. Together, we must hand down the wisdom of the ages to a depraved generation. Need I go on? We have reached that place where there's nowhere else we can turn to, parents. There's nobody else that can take this slack up. You've exhausted places, organizations, agencies to care for your children and in the manner that they need it. And it's now time for all of us together to answer that question. What time is it? That's an important question right now. What time is it? What we're dealing with now and what's on the table are human issues in our decision making, whether it's politics, but in this particular conversation, it's dealing with parents and it's dealing with children who are the future human beings for the human race to continue. The most important topic of the day to me, and we cannot let it be anymore on the bottom of our priority list. It is time for healing old wounds. This is the time for generations to begin reconnecting. It's time to begin answering the hard cries of our children. It is time for adults to stop acting and to start acting responsibly by taking responsibility for your actions. Remember, children learn by what they see you do. It's time for adults to say what they mean and mean what they say. It's time to admit when you are wrong. We have a generation that needs to know that it is acceptable to be wrong. And that we are big enough to right our wrongs. It's time for all adults to be positive role models for the children, as well as for your neighbor's children. It's time. It's time to take ownership of past actions, to make any corrections that is possible. It's time. It's time for forgiveness and reconciliation. Who's raising America's children? It's time to begin again with a renewed mind. It's time to end the blame game. It's time to stop pointing the fingers at others and take a look at self. It's time to take the plank out of your own eye so that you can be able to see clearly how to help someone else to remove theirs. It's time. It's time to put an end to the thinking that two wrongs don't make no right, or two wrongs don't make it right. It's time. It's time to lead by example. It's time to respect the worth and value of the human family. It's time to give and show respect for human life, all human life. It's time for the elders to come together to raise up the old landmarks. It's time to rebuild the village, the walls that have been trampled under the foot of men. It's time to rebuild. It's time for the hearts of the fathers to return to their children, and the hearts of the children to return to their fathers. It's time. It's time to turn around and re-examine. To re-examine our course. To re-examine America's course. Because we all are America. I used to wonder what Dr. King meant when he said that our destinies was tied to the destiny of all America, and it is. We all go down. It's going to take the strength of all of us to turn things for the better. Children lacking what is expected to be within human beings. That's a parenting issue. There's no shortcut or way to get around that. That is reality. That is a parenting issue. And if we correct the issues of parenting, responsible adults, and if we allow ourselves to grow up spiritually, that's the problem. We stop growing spiritually. We've been going around and around and around and around in circles and going nowhere. It's the more of the same. For decades, it's been greed on top of greed until where we are now, to where only a few have the wealth and most of us are at the bottom. Oh, spirituality and morality has everything to do with the quality of life. Your spirituality demands that you tell the truth and that you love your fellow man. We are torn right now. We are torn because one want to think one way and the other want to think another. When we are all in this life school together right now, and many have not learned the lesson of what it means, love yourself and then love your neighbor. We want to be of the mindset that as long as I'm okay, that's all that matters. And that's not so, because we tied together in this thing. We're tied together, whether you like it or not, or whether or not you have come to that place to accept and to face this reality. We must learn that golden rule that says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We're in life school together. If we want to see an end of the chaos that we're experiencing, if we want to see an end where we have people in political positions who are not centered on human life, that's a tragedy that we have allowed ourselves to get here. But it's not time to cry, it's time to act. It's time to act. And I call for all of the elders everywhere to get in position with your families. Do that you know to do. If you need forgiveness, ask for it. We have to put in our children what they need. We have to give ourselves what we need. I ask this important question. I guess you say I'm always asking questions, and that is so necessary because it does, and your thinking need to be challenged. Parenting doesn't just involve meeting a child's basic need, food, clothing, shelter. Parenting is a lot more than that today. A lot more than that today. Parenting is transferring and transmitting your ideas, your beliefs. What are you telling your children you believe? How do you plan to rectify without it changing you as well? An important question that I pose to you in terms of telling the truth. Let's use that as an example. How prepared are you to teach that lesson? That's the question. This generation demands that you be genuine. They don't want to hear anything else, and I don't blame them, because they've had so much to endure because of generations of adults who allowed themselves to fall into degradation, where values, decent values, no longer matter. But I hope that we all can see that it does matter in the final analysis. I'm going to leave you with that. I had to go a little deep. I'm trying to learn how to read from the paper. I write down things, and it's very distracting because I find I'm most comfortable when I can just speak from my heart. And I think that's all we need right now is some heart. Heart for one another. And to show each other much love. And until next time, this is Blanche Clayton. And if you're interested in continuing this dialogue, I ask that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. I think it's below. Thank you and have a good day.